Junie Longstaff. I hope you all can hear me. I'm an author and illustrator and designer, and I have a story to tell. The story doesn't start out too nice, so I'll just go ahead and get the difficult part out of the way right now. 11 years ago, 2 months before my daughter was born, at the young age of 48, my dad died of cancer. A few months before he died, we had a nice chat while sitting on his front porch step in a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. I didn't know it was going to be the last time I saw him alive, but I think he did. That day, he gave me the greatest gift of all. He told me, Ami, you get one life. Do what you love. Just live life. Be happy. At that moment, with my 2 toddler sons running my mom ragged inside the house, chasing my dad's cat behind the toilet, it was really hard to take in those words at that moment. I smiled, I nodded my head in agreement, and I said, oh yeah, I love being a mom, and we are happy, you're right, one life. We had dinner, we chased the cat some more, we gave big hugs, and pretty soon, my family and I were back on our way home to Ohio. He died a few months later. I grieved his loss for a long time and thought of our last moments often. His words finally became loud and clear. He knew I wasn't happy. He knew I was missing something. He knew I was on the same path that he had been on as a young parent. He worked long, hard hours and rarely got to see me grow up. He missed out, and I was missing out too. Each day, I woke up, I made my kids breakfast, put them on the bus and said, see you tomorrow. You see, I worked shifts. I used to be a police officer in Kansas City, but I married a Marine and I traveled around the country with him and we landed here and I started working for dispatch for 911. And I worked the afternoon shift for the city of Menor, answering 911 phone calls with no hope because I was bottom of the barrel and it is based on seniority. I had no hope of ever working a day shift. I had no hope of being home during the hours that my kids were home. I did what I had to keep my family afloat and to keep the bills paid. It was heartbreaking, but I volunteered at the kids' school as much as I could in the library reading stories to kids. I'm that mom that reads in silly, wacky voices. I just love it. I love reading children's stories. I've always had love for it. I also love to tell my kids bedtime stories. And one day, I decided to start writing them down. I wanted to make one into a book for my daughter. Just a simple little book with her as the main character, something that she could keep forever and read to her daughter someday. I figured this was going to cost me some money. At the same time that I was writing my stories down, I also was making pretty flowers for my only daughter to wear in her hair. She had a flower to match every outfit. The flower became her signature style, and friends asked me to make flowers for their daughters, and pretty soon little girls were coming over to my house to design their special flower with me. Then I had a glorious idea to make tons of flowers and sell them at craft fairs to earn extra money to publish my book. It took longer than I had expected to complete the book. I wanted it to be perfect for my little Junie Balloonie. That's the nickname I gave her. Her name is Taylor Corey June. Corey was my dad's name, and June is the middle name that she shares with me. From the moment she was born, she was my sweet Junie Balloonie. There's more to writing a children's book than you might think. I took a few classes and workshops to learn how to meter the words correctly. The flow of the rhyme has to be, it's crucial. You have to think of it like a Sudoku puzzle. The syllables and the lines have to match perfectly, and the ebbs and flows of every word has to go together. I rewrote my story several times until I thought it was good enough to send back home to a friend of mine who I went to high school with, who just happened to be an editor, and she loved it. It was then time to start the illustrations. I thought that it would be fun to have my oldest son, who loved to draw, do the illustrations for me. He was all for it until he realized that he was going to have to draw a lot of pictures of cheerleaders, and then I had to go to plan B. I had saved up a little money from selling the flowers at the craft fairs, but not near enough money to hire my own illustrator. So I decided to try my hand at the art. My brother-in-law just happens to be an artist for Hallmark who makes the Hallmark ornaments, so I figured that maybe if I got stuck, I could give him a call. I sketched that's my daughter at our craft fair. I sketched the characters with pencil. I scanned them into my computer. I purchased real Illustrator software to work with. I watched countless software tutorial videos on YouTube. I redrew everything in my illustration software. I started over about 15 times. But I was motivated and determined to finish. When all was said and done, I didn't need any help from my brother-in-law, and I had a pretty cute gift to give my daughter. I called the self-publishing company that I chose to use and asked, what is my total going to be when I hit that publish button? He said, did you use our illustrators? No, I did all the illustrations myself. Did you use our editors? No, a friend of mine did that for me. Did you use our formatters? No, I taught myself how to do that. Well, then your total is 0. Why don't you hit that publish button and start making money? What? Making money? Oh, no. I just want one copy for my daughter, please. And he said, you just want one copy? You did all that work for one copy? It doesn't cost you anything to self-publish it. Hit that button and give it a try. Well, okay then. Junie Balloonie and the Perfect Cheer was published in a print-on-demand format through CreateSpace, which is an Amazon company. It is listed on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, and as an ebook. Marketing the book was an entirely different beast that I continue to work on to this day. In the meantime, more people were requesting flowers. I enjoyed making them with my daughter and coming up with new designs while my kids were in school. I enjoyed the creative process so much, I wished I could do it every day. That's when I started listening to my dad. Do what you love. You get one life. I had been going through the motions instead of living life. I had been missing out on my children's lives. I was involved as much as possible. I went to as many Little League games as I could. I celebrated holidays on days other than the actual holidays. I helped with homework over the phone. And I sat at their foot of the beds watching them sleep at 11:30 at night when I returned home from work. Enough was enough. I only get one shot at this. I told my husband, I can't say I'll be there more for my next family. This is my family. They are my heart. I needed to be there emotionally and physically present for them. And I wanted to start living my one life the way I felt was right for me. I began taking steps towards working 911 part-time. Everyone at the City of Mentor was so supportive. My children were counting down the days. The book wasn't bringing enough royalties in to fully cut my paycheck in half, but the flowers were still blooming. The original Junie Balloonie flower, which is what that is, went with the book because the main character wears a flower in her hair. I was doing more crafts fairs for income rather than for book published fundraising. It wasn't going too well. I had heard quiet comments like, I could do that myself. I can make those. That's not very unique. And they were right. I knew that I had to create something pretty special if I wanted to pay the bills. I was worried. At one craft fair that wasn't very busy, I started having a conversation with a vendor that was sitting next to me. Her daughter really loved the flowers, and she asked me, can you make one work and look like a water lily? The petals I used were purchased loose fabric petals. They came in one shape and 3 sizes, and those petals were not going to be able to create a flower that looked like a water lily. But I had an idea. I was going to see the water lily lady the next month at another craft fair, so I told her I would try a few things and then get back with her. From being a crafty mom, I knew that I could melt certain fabrics, and I wondered if I would be able to create a water lily shape by cutting, forming, folding, and layering different fabrics. So I went to Joann Fabrics and I purchased a few poly blends to try. I drew a petal pattern, I cut it out, and I heated the edges over the fabric over an open flame, which sealed the edges and gave the petal its curve. The more I melted, the more the fabric curved. I was able to create a pretty decent looking water lily. At the next craft fair, I proudly brought the lily to show the woman that had asked for it. She didn't buy it. I was a little bummed, but a new spark was ignited. I stopped spending money on craft fair registration fees and started spending time perfecting my new art. The design evolved into what it is now. The multi-purpose flower that can be worn in your hair, as a brooch, or dangling from your purse. For the longest time, I hand cut every petal with scissors, which meant cutting yards of fabric into 4-inch squares, folding each 4-inch square into 8 triangles, cutting the actual petal shape. And then each petal is melted over a tiny tea-light candle to seal the edges and get the curve of the petal. That's what really makes the flower. Then each petal is folded into a special pattern and sewn together by hand. The embellishments are then added, the backings are glued on, the gift boxes are folded and stuffed, and the bow is tied. And voila! 40 minutes later, you have one beautiful flower. I worked on flowers from the moment my kids got on the bus until I had to leave for work. I was pretty busy. And then, Secret Santa time arrived. I belong to a silly group known as the Idiots Running Club. It's a group of runners from all over the world. Some of us run for charities, some are training for their first 5K, and others are seasoned 100-miler racers. I'm kind of in the middle. We all meet on a Facebook group to support and motivate each other. We also send each other get-well cards for injuries, sympathy cards for loss. I sent a purple flower to a teammate's mother who was having some health issues. And that teammate was very thankful and posted a picture on the Facebook page, and it was coincidentally perfect timing. Each year we have something called Secret Idiot, which is basically a Secret Santa exchange. A teammate who knew my story and knew that I wanted to have a change in career ordered 10 flowers for 10 women around the country, all the same color, gray because it's a popular neutral, and she had me send them anonymously. The frenzy started 1 week later when they received their gray flowers. From an extra secret idiot is what the card read that was placed inside the box. One by one, these 10 women posted the pics of their flower to the Idiot's Facebook page, and everybody started seeing a pattern. One person sent flowers to so many people, Everyone was on pins and needles waiting to see who was going to get the next flower, and I was sworn to secrecy. Some of the flower receivers even ordered more flowers for more secret people. 5 purple flowers here, 8 yellow flowers there, all over the world. Some women got so caught up in the frenzy that they just wanted to receive the beautiful box in their mailbox that day. If they didn't receive one, they would post their disappointment in a lighthearted way. I soon had a list of anonymous givers. If someone posted that they wanted one, I had prepaid flowers to send. If someone was going through a rough time, I had prepaid flowers to send. I added a little card to each box that said, "Like a flower, we only get one life. Do what you love, pursue your passion, and bloom to your fullest potential." Junie Balloonie became the signature style of women of the Idiots Running Club. They proudly wore their flowers in their hair during their races. They purchased flowers on ribbons to give to their friends as their race medals if they were training for their first 5K or just completed their first half marathon. They started believing that the flowers were their good luck charm, and they would not run their race without their bloom. You can probably imagine the amount of time that went into these flowers. I needed to make a faster process. I had a die made with my specific petal shape and size. I also had a die made for the specific shape of the backings. And I now have a company in Solon that cuts my fabric for me. All petals are still hand sealed and shaped over a tiny candle by myself. I have attempted to teach other people how to do what I call the candling technique, but it truly is an art form. The fabric can burn fast, and the shaping of the petals has to be perfect, so the bloom is perfect. Someday, I hope to have a faster process for this. I'm currently brainstorming with anybody that will listen to the story. If you happen to know of an idea for me, please talk to me after the luncheon. With the introduction of my die, the time to make each flower has been cut in half, from 40 minutes to around 15 to 20 minutes. It's still a long process, but well worth it, because last summer, I was able to go part-time in 911. Now, when I put my kids on the bus in the morning, I say, "See you after school." Even though the flowers were red hot, I managed to find time to go back to my first passion of children's books. I recently released my second book, Monster Moms. It's a very sweet book about a giant puppy. It happens to be a true story about how we welcomed our black lab monster into our home last summer. That's a whole other story. And I'm running out of time. So I think maybe you should just purchase a book of your own so you can read that story. My children are my only employees so far. My daughter Taylor helps me with design. My middle son Tank builds all my boxes and stuffs them all and builds all my backings for me. And my oldest son Trenton, who's the handsome one on the end, he spends countless hours with me making flowers with little girls at events like the kids show at the mall. That's not something most 15-year-old boys and 2 of his friends would happily do for a pizza, but we all work together to help each other bloom. My kids are my loudest cheerleaders, and I am theirs. Each one of them has caught the entrepreneur bug from Mom, and Trenton even started his own lawn care business, and he is the current Lake County Kids Biz for-profit Young Entrepreneur of the Year. I am his chauffeur, his secretary, and his manager. He pays me in donuts, and I couldn't be happier. So this is the story of how Junie Balloonie came to be. It's not a household name yet. I now have more chapters to my story than I ever thought possible. I now offer home parties for little girls' birthdays, creativity parties for teens and adults. I wrote and illustrated 2 books so far. I started my own publishing label, JB Books. I do personal illustrations and logo design. I make the homecoming corsages and boutonnieres for high school. I do wedding cake topper flowers. They are all multi-purpose, by the way. You can wear them in your hair after. I create spirit blooms for schools, cheer teams, dance squads, and sororities. I design fundraiser flowers for Little League team sports or charities. And I just introduced Junie Balloonie bow ties and collar blooms for pets. I started teaching illustration workshops at Willoughby Fine Arts, and I'm getting ready to write another edition of Junie Balloonie and Monster Minds. I'm so thankful for those last moments with my dad. Without them, I probably would still be going through the motions of daily life, and I wouldn't be living. And I would have missed out on the most important thing of all. The message behind the business is simple, and one that I think we all need to be reminded of weekly, if not daily. You get one life. Do what you love, enjoy a hobby, play sport, write a book, travel the world, whatever it is, do it with passion, and bloom to your fullest potential. Thank you.
So did anybody have any questions? There we go.
I don't have a question, but you seem like a very good Shark Tank candidate.
I have been told that, and that is a goal of mine. I think the first thing I need to do is find the process to replace my candling. That's the only thing that's holding me back.
This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Her blooms are in shop in the city in Painesville. I just bought Cavalier's bloom to start the season's about upon us.
Yeah, they're in shop in the city. That's the first place that my blooms have been, and I love that store. I love everything about it. And I just recently was asked to put my blooms in the Cleveland Candle Company, which is on Diamond Center across from the cinema. And they asked me to host parties there with them, so you could be able to make a candle and a bloom. And I have flyers for that if anybody's interested. Anybody else?
Speaking of shop in the city, downtown Painesville is having a shop day on Friday afternoon, isn't it, Mary Jo? 4:30 to 8:30. So you can go down and shop in the city and pick up a bloom if you'd like. Downtown Painesville organization is having that.